Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome all members and guests to the February 6, 2024 Public Committee Hearing Committee meeting. And I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised, so if you could take a moment to ensure your phones are on silent, that would be great. If anyone is participating or attending virtually on the line, this is a reminder to keep yourself muted, raise your Teams raise hand feature if you'd like to be called upon, unmute yourself and turn on your camera. And with that, I call February 6, 2024 Public Hearing Committee meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest today? Okay, seeing none, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All in favor? That's carried. I'll now officially open the public meeting held under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, and County Policy. Please be advised that to preserve your right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, you are required to make a comment or provide written submission prior to the passing of a bylaw. These meetings are allowed to allow the public to provide initial comments presented on the planning matters, and we can report back at a later time when we make a decision at another date. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sloan, General Manager of Community Development, for report CD 24006, 60 Prospect Street, Port Dover.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. So for the first file, we have Fabian here to introduce it for planning. So I'll turn it over to Fabian, and he'll walk through the presentation.
Thank you, Brandon. Through you, Madam Chair. So the first project that we are discussing today is a zoning bylaw amendment for 60 Prospect Street that is located in Port Dover in Norfolk County. Can we move to the next slide, please? So the site consists of a single detached house with a detached garage. It is in roughly about a quarter of an acre in size. It's located at the intersection of Prospect Street and Maple Street in Port Dover, and its primary surrounding land uses consists of residential land uses. Next slide. The official plan currently has the designation of urban residential applied to the subject lands, and the zoning for the property is currently R1A. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the development proposal in its entirety, essentially what the applicant is looking to do is to obtain a zoning approval to change the zoning for Part 1 and Part 2. So Part 1 is the western portion, that everything related to Part 1 in the western portion is in relation to the existing dwelling that currently exists on the property. And the eastern portion would be where they are proposing to locate the semi-detached dwelling. So in order to do this, they are proposing the zoning amendment in order to change the zoning from for the respective parcels in order to allow the use of a semi-detached building and for specific zoning provisions to make the proposal fit and to change the zoning. So subsequently, if zoning is approved by council, they would then be applying for a severance application in order to split the lots into two. And then subsequently, they would then be applying for another severance to ultimately split that semi into into another lot. In total, there would be a total of 3 lots that are created from the former 1 lot. If you go to the next slide. So that's essentially an overview of, from a high level, of what it is they're looking at doing. And this slide here essentially breaks down the specific provisions in which they're requesting to be amended. So for the western portion of the property, that would apply to everything that relates to the existing building. So they require an amendment for the exterior side yard setback, as well as the interior side yard setback and the rear yard setback, because the property lines are technically changing. For the eastern portion of the lot, which is where they are proposing the semi-detached building, they're proposing a minimum lot area of 252.79 square meters, where they're required to have a minimum lot area of 255 square meters in the R2 zone, and a minimum rear yard setback of 3.13 meters, and they are required to have a rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. So with that, I will note that the lot area is deficient by, we'll say, less than 3 square meters, and the minimum rear yard setback that they've provided is a total of 3.13 meters. So with that, in the proposal, they're kind of in a situation where if they can't meet the front yard setback, then they need to amend the rear yard setback, and they ultimately lean towards amending the rear yard setback in order to provide the parking that would be required to accommodate the semi-detached buildings. So with that being said, the proposed development does satisfy the parking requirements, and that's ultimately their justification for requesting the rear yard setback versus the front yard setback. I will also note that that overlapping box there in the center between the two lines is the existing garage that would be removed. And I would note that I also did an analysis comparing the size of the existing garage in comparison to the size of the proposed building in terms of lot coverage. So one of the semis is proposed at a total of 1,500 square feet. We'll say roughly 1,500 square feet, and the accessory garage is just under 1,000 square feet, so a difference of roughly 550 square feet would be essentially the difference between the accessory building and one of the semi-units. Can we go to the next slide? In addition to that, we've also received public feedback at this time. A summary of the public comments are essentially that common themes that have come across are it's considered overdevelopment, it's not compatible with the existing area, drainage is a major issue that's been made clear from various members of the public, as well as compatibility from a cohesive standpoint, because the entire area consists of single detached dwellings, and this would be the only semi-detached building pretty much in the entire area. So with that, that essentially summarizes and concludes my presentation. If there's any questions from council or the public, I'm here
Okay,
to
thanks,
answer your
Fabian.
questions.
Questions from committee to staff? Councillor Columbus.
Just to clarify, so on the east side of this development, which is 10,890 square feet roughly for the whole property, there would be 2 homes on 5,500 square feet? Is that what I'm calculating?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Councillor. Each semi would be 1,500 square feet. So in total, it's my understanding that they'd be approximately 3,000 square feet, the entirety of the building.
The building, but what about the lot itself, the east side? If it gets a severance, will the 2 homes on the east side be on 5,500 square feet roughly?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
On the east side, would the 2 homes that are going to be located there be roughly 5,500 square feet? Lot space. I'm not talking about residential building.
Through Madam Mayor, the 55, I think it is, you're talking about total lot area, right?
Yes.
So it will
total
be
lot.
in a square meter. I think Fabian mentioned in a square meter.
Yes, 252 square meters for each semi.
Okay, I deal in squared feet, so I guess we're off, but I'll try to calculate it out. Thanks.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yeah, thank Madam Mayor. One of the proposals is for the interior side yard of the existing house, right? So it's not conforming now? Is that what I get from that?
It's essentially to sorry, I'd like to defer to the applicant to answer that question, if possible. I also noticed that as well. No, nothing is changing with the way I've understood it. Nothing is changing with the existing building because those setbacks have been in place. Right.
The question was that confirmation on, is the existing dwelling, is anything changing with the existing dwelling because there's a request for relief? The answer was no, the existing dwelling is staying in the same place, but it's, the request for relief still needs to require to receive conformity. Okay, I have a couple questions for staff and then we will switch gears here. So, sorry, was that a hand? Okay. No, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you to development engineering staff. I wonder if you could just maybe expand on comment number 1 in the technical comments regarding temporary water supply. I think Darnell might be on the line.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. I'll have to take that question. I believe there was the comment in number 1 from development engineering that talked about the lifting of the current moratorium on cisterns and that they would be able to apply for and connect to water service. If there's further clarification required on that, happy to repeat.
Thanks. So my understanding, I think, in the initial part of the report was that the applicant was going to be putting in a cistern, and we were saying that that's not required because they can apply for capacity.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, my question's for staff. So that we're communicating to the public and that I have a proper understanding here. Accessory dwelling units in Norfolk County and now in Ontario are permitted as of right. So this property, without any changes, has the ability to add 1 additional accessory dwelling unit to its property.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as it currently stands, they would be able to potentially add 2. They could have
Correct.
1
Sorry,
within
the
the building
garage.
and then 1 in a detached building as well.
Okay, so that is a permitted use that you would not need to come to council for.
Correct. Dependent on if they can meet the provisions.
Okay. Yeah. And the requirement or the supplemental stage where they would come and ask for a severance is because it doesn't meet the accessory dwelling unit requirement, being 2 separate standalone additions, and because I'm assuming the agent wants to then sever and sell and not be a landlord?
For that, I would have to defer to the agent.
Typically, why is the severance a mandated or why are we encouraging that then?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So typically, it could be there could be 2 avenues. It could be that the property owner is simply looking to establish a lot and create a lot and then sell the lot, or they are looking to develop the house, create the house, and then sell it themselves. So it could go one of 2 ways.
And then, given the push for housing and development that we're seeing from the province, in your opinion, is it planning's opinion that this is now an abnormal request, or is this something that council should be prepared to see more of, these type of infill developments?
So through you, Madam Mayor, in my professional planning opinion, I believe that we will see more of these types of requests as time goes on. In reviewing this application, I also understand that along Maple Avenue, behind Maple Avenue, there's also a new subdivision, or relatively new subdivision that's in behind there. That consists primarily of single detached homes. If looking at our GIS system, it appears that development took place anywhere from 2015 onward. So with that being said, theoretically, any lot that could support infill development, we could see this type of application come forward. We could also see accessory dwelling units being applied for, or we could also see the option of, if this would be approved, theoretically, the existing building could support an ADU within it, and the semi-detached buildings, each semi-detached could also implement their own accessory dwelling units.
So this is my concern. I'm actually a big fan of accessory dwelling units, which I'm sure you know well, Fabian, but like within reason, right? Mm-hmm. So it has to meet the needs of the community. So if we're seeing an infill right now, this existing property could stay exactly the way it is. It could add 2 accessory dwelling units, one in the house, one in the garage. But they're opting to add 2 separate units into the backyard and sever the lot. So in a roundabout way, it's net neutral here by way of adding additional units. It's the square footage that's being impacted. However, after, let's say hypothetically this is approved and hypothetically there's a severance and it's sold, that now creates 3 separate dwellings that can create accessory dwelling units. So now there could be 6 separate dwellings on these 2 parcels. And that is something that is, in my opinion, going too far. So how do we ensure that we're not impacting the entire character of this neighborhood and there's cars everywhere and people coming and going when it doesn't fit the...
Through Madam Mayor, I'd probably answer this question. If we see the size of the lots, the lots are very small, and we already see that the deficiency of side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, and as you know that to accommodate an accessory dwelling unit, there will be some provisions. Based on the size we see, we can tell that there will be no detached accessory dwelling because we don't have a area or we don't have enough space at the rear side. In terms of any attached accessory dwelling unit, we would probably see whether it can be done through, for example, a basement unit. That is possible. So there is a possibility of 1 unit, but again, we have to look at other provisions like parking requirements. So for accessory dwelling unit, we require 1 parking space. In this case, the proposal includes, I believe, 1 parking in the garage and 1 parking on driveway. The proponent can't confirm that. If it is the case, I don't see any provisions to add another parking for an accessory dwelling unit. So there are lots of other provisions that needs to be made. If they cannot make that, then there is no accessory dwelling unit, and that's true for many other lots as well, smaller lots basically.
Okay, something to be aware of and conscious of, like that is too much, that would be too intense in my opinion, and I don't know where, with already the setbacks being requested, where they would make up additional parking. So then I guess my last question, and then I will go over to you, Tricia, is from a planning perspective, we see that there's a deficiency overall, and that's the request for relief, but we see that that's done to accommodate the parking, which promotes the housing, which is a provincial mandate, and so on and so forth. From a planning perspective, what's the preference, to ask for a relief on parking or ask for a relief to the lot size? Like at some point in time, we have to give and take on some of the others. And
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd kindly ask that Tricia or Mohammed assist in answering that question.
sure, Tricia's online. Go ahead, Tricia.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? So just to go back to the question around theoretically there could be up to 6 units in the future. So to clarify Mohammed's answer, on the newly created semis, subject to council's approval, if council does approve the proposed zoning amendment and there is a severance in the future, I don't believe that the zoning would permit an additional dwelling unit. So there wouldn't be sufficient parking. So you're right. There would have to be a future application to consider an ADU for those smaller lots. So those would come back to council for consideration at that time to allow for the reduced parking. We know that there's parking challenges always. That's the number one issue that comes up with any development in the planning department, is discussions around parking. So there'd have to be a good evaluation and justification to consider reductions in parking. And it's always a balancing act, most definitely, for there's a desperate need for additional housing, especially for ADUs or units that are potentially going to be rental. So we'd have to have good justification to consider reductions in parking, particularly in this area, because the other balance would be, are folks going to be parking on the street? Is that going to impact other events that happen, for example, in Port Dover? So all of those things would have to be evaluated in the future.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands. So is the applicant or the agent here, and do you wish to speak? Come on up to the podium. You can hit the button on the right-hand side and state your name for the public record, please.
Mitchell Baker. I'm a planner with Lampro Planning Solutions. I'm the agent on this application. So, through you, Madam Mayor, firstly, I'd just like to thank planning staff for preparing and providing a thorough overview and summary of the development application. Overall, we're looking to infill in this existing neighborhood as provincial policy states to direct new development towards existing neighborhoods and on underutilized lots. And this proposed rezoning will allow for gentle intensification in the existing neighborhood where infrastructure and public services currently exist. Ultimately, this results in an efficient development and land use patterns across the county. Additionally, the Norfolk County Official Plan, Section 5.3.1 is a section on residential intensification, and it is used to better guide developments similar to this one throughout the county. Firstly, I'll begin with addressing some of the public comments that we've received so far. The first one being lot grading and drainage. So the survey that was submitted as part of the application package does show some drainage and through drainage swales and a small retaining wall to address these, although a final lot grading plan is required and will be submitted for the severed lands at the time of the building permit. And this is in accordance with the Development Engineering Department's process and submission timelines. Secondly, the rear yard and privacy. I understand that there was concerns about that from the public as well. And this rear yard is being requested to be reduced as discussed to accommodate the parking and to keep that front yard setback where it is to better conform with the existing character of the neighborhood. And in terms of the privacy in the rear yard, we're requesting 3.13 meters, and we're recommending and are willing to provide several privacy protection measures, such as a landscape buffer, shrubbery, bushes, trees, taller fencing if needed, to maintain that abutting lot's privacy. And in terms of the character of the neighborhood, we've designed the dwelling to be in character with this neighborhood and maintain the visual impact from street level and passersby to minimize any visual impacts. So finally, our intention is to make efficient use of the land of the underutilized lot in the existing neighborhood, largely in accordance with the provincial policy statement and county official plan policy. Both myself and the property owners are present too if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions from committee to the agent or applicant? Okay, let's move along to council chambers guests. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak? Come on up to the podium. You can hit that button on the right-hand side, and then please state your name for the public record, and that's okay, take your time. And on that note, you only get 5 minutes to speak anyway, so I will give you a gentle reminder when you're at the one minute left mark. Whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martiner and councilors. My name's Charlie Upshaw. I'm the owner of Lot 17, which is just to the east of the proposed new build. I support the general concept of infilling. The Port Dover Secondary Plan of 2021 states that the intent is to intensify where there are prime candidates for the introduction of additional residential units. In my opinion, this application does not qualify. There are lot deficiencies with regard to setbacks, the lot size is deficient, and there are no two-story buildings on Maple Avenue, period. A major concern is drainage. Firstly, The proposed lot is only 150 meters from a provincially significant wetland, according to the application. The entire neighborhood has a high water table. My 2 sump pumps have been running steadily since we had heavy rain on January 9th, and there's still some pooling water in my yard. My neighbors, including the neighbor I came with today, have had to spend extensively on landscaping and double sump pumps, etc., internal membranes in the case of my house, because of the high water table and the significant wetland. That's one point. Another, according to the application's attachment C, technical comments, your development engineering states that the rear yards are to have a minimum usable continuous slope not exceeding 6%, extending a distance of 6 meters from the rear of the new building. That's from Norfolk County. The proposed drawing indicates only a 3.13 meter setback. Norfolk County's development engineering would not recommend this plan. This is written in the application, by the way. Development engineering would not recommend this plan as it could lead to future implications for usable rear yard area. And we just heard the planner say, in this 3.13 meters, he's willing to plant shrubbery in order to help the privacy barrier going back to the lot behind it, lot 10. Well, you've only got 3.13 meters from your house to the end of your property, and you want to plant shrubbery? How much property do you have for your yard? Additionally, the root system for the only tree on the proposed lot, which is a magnificent old maple, will undoubtedly be severely compromised when they dig for the building. So it will lose the only meaningful landscape that it has. This concludes my comments, Your Worship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up, sir. If you would, please state your name for the public record, and you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready to begin.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If you could state your name for the public record, and then you have 5 minutes whenever
Okay.
you're ready.
Okay. Where's the button? Okay. Charlie's right. Oh, sorry. My name is Ron Mandryk, M-A-N-D-R-Y-K, and my wife Cindy. Now, my wife Cindy has lived in that house since practically it was built. I'm sorry, the house about 55, they moved there in 62, okay? And so, and I've known the family for about 55 years. So anyways, her dad had problems with this house every time it rained. And if he got 2 inches, and let's say the hydro went out, his basement had a foot of water in it. Well, that's not good. So when we bought the house from Cindy's dad, when we bought it together, we had to go out and buy a generator, Interact generator. And we put it, I didn't want to put it right next to the house. I put it back about 40, 50 feet from the house. Cost me over close to $13,000 for that generator, and dig the hose and get all the wiring up to the house. And there's a lot, it's complex. It's not as easy. And the gas line, natural gas line. So it's expensive, but now, at least now, and I got 2 pumps running in my basement also, like Charlie does, and it's no good. And now we got this coming in, and he says, well, this big tree he's got, I got one too. So it's gonna be, I know there's roots, I mean big roots going in where this foundation's gonna end up. So, and I don't even know, is this 2-story or what? Is the basement in there? What's going on? What's going on? They're making a 2-story? Vivian?
3, that's correct.
3-story?
2.
The
Two stories, a basement, and then the main floor and a 2nd story.
Okay. So, and how high is the roof in the basement from the floor up to the main floor?
We can get council to ask those questions for you.
Huh?
We'll ask those questions for you. You just share your feedback with us and we will get that answer for you.
Okay, I'm done?
If you'd like to be, you still have another minute.
No, I don't like it because I live I'm just north. My property runs the entire front to back of the proposed place. And I don't like it. And I bought that place because I wanted someplace to retire. Okay, it's a nice quiet street. Now you're gonna put 2 more houses on one house, 3 houses. And then what happened if these people have kids? And that, like my son's got 4 boys. Each has a car. Where are you gonna park them? No good. And I guess I don't like the water. I don't like the encroachment. And I sure don't like 2.5 story. They say 2-story, but they forget about the roof. If it's a high-pitched roof, might as well say 3-story. So who knows? We're not getting a lot of information. That's the first time I heard that it was 2-story.
We can, if there are any questions that we don't have already in the public report, this is the time to raise them and staff will put that information into a public document that comes back to council for decision. So if there is any uncertainty, now is the time to raise it. But
I only got one more question. And that is, oh, you people sitting down here around this round table and up there, how would you like it if you had a nice place, invested money in it? I spent $125,000 just on the inside of the house. Okay, we made it pretty for retirement. It's done. And then to have this come up right beside you, picture it at your place, or your place, or your place, your place, your place, your place. Would you like that? No, doesn't belong there. Build it someplace else. Not tell them not to build it someplace else. That's all I got to say.
okay, thanks for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in council chambers? Come on up, please. State your name for the public record.
Hello, my name is Rod Short. I live across the street on Maple Ave. My main concern is the drainage on this project. Drainage is something that I've been involved with for 40 years. I reviewed the grading plan that was submitted, and it just simply doesn't work. It's going to actually cause worse drainage issues on the neighbor's property than it will on the subject lands. So just on drainage alone, it should be denied. Also, the building that they're proposing to put on is just simply too much for that piece of property. It's way too close to the rear yard. You're trying to say that's because of the parking. Well, they got to have 6 meters up front. That's the setback. So the 3 meters in back, as far as I'm concerned, has absolutely nothing to do with the parking. So that's, right? You talk about additional units, there's not enough room for the one you want to put on. So how are they going to put additional ones on? Thanks.
Technically, no. Technically, no. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak here in council chambers? While you're thinking it over, is there anyone on the line? Final call. Is there anyone on the line that wishes to speak?
Through you, Madam Mayor, she has her hand up.
Yep, just checking on the line. Come on up. If you would, state your name for the public record, please.
Rita Lar, 18 Maple Avenue.
Sorry, can you just pull that microphone down a little closer to you and then go again?
Rita Lar, 18 Maple Avenue. We're up the street from the corner. Everyone's talking about the structures and what have you. We're a little further down. On the weekends, for instance, parking, there's lots and lots of cars on the parking on the street. It is overwhelming to think that now 2 units are being added. That's 4 cars if there are only 2 drivers. Who knows what kind of families going in, how many children driving, etc. There's not a lot of parking on the ongoing of single-family dwellings. We purchased that in that area because of that reason. And the more crowding at the corner is going to make it very difficult for all those on a day-to-day living basis. Thank you.
That's great. Anyone else in the room? Okay. I'm going to bounce back to committee then. Is there something else you'd like to pose to staff? Councillor Van Passen, please.
Just to help answer some, what is the maximum height allowed in an R2 zone that would limit the height of the building? So.
Through you, Madam Chair, the permitted height is 11 meters.
Councillor Columbus.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Brunton had a question for one of the persons here. Could he ask the question, and it may be an important question that we need an answer for. Can he ask the question of planning or anybody else,
I could,
rather than the person that came up here?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question, I got a couple questions. Like I've heard from different people here today about water drainage, and our planner did indicate that he was going to. There is a grading plan for the property, but based on what I've heard here, I'm not sure, but I think in the past I visited this area where the drain goes across Maple Street and it eventually gets to a ravine, and I'm not sure, there's no north arrow on here, but to me there seems to be 2 problems, the overland, and is there a lot of groundwater in the area? Because people with 2 sump pumps must have a bit of a problem if they're. So my question is there, are these buildings designed already? Are they like a slab on grade, or are they going to be footings, foundations? Do you know?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd have to defer to the agent for that level of detail.
Oh, all right.
It's a 2-story building with a basement as well.
Okay, well, I guess my question, like 2 of these gentlemen indicated they have 2 sump pumps in their homes already. And that's not really, it indicates to me that it's more of a groundwater issue than it is an overland flow. Are you, like your grading plan just takes care of the property you're dealing with, I take. Am I correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that would just be our property.
So where does your water go? I haven't seen a grading plan. I just wonder, where does it go, to the street?
So you, Madam Mayor, we don't have a final grading plan prepared at this moment, as that it will be part of the building permit process. So at that point, development engineering will review the final lot grading plan.
Oh, I thought somebody said they've seen a grading plan already.
There were grading details provided on within their site plan that they provided, but it's not their final draft of a grading plan, if you will.
So can you tell me what did it do? Grade everything to the street, or how did it? What did you see? I guess.
So through you, Madam Chair, the grading plans are reviewed during building permit stage, where that will only happen after zoning approvals. We don't review that at this time.
So you don't know right now then where the property drains to?
That's correct. I can indicate that in OB, like in Ontario, essentially, property owners can't have their water distribute onto on other local residents, right? So all the water would have to drain onto said respective lot.
Well, I assume they're trying to grade it off of their property. That's what he would try to do, but does it go to the street then? Is that where he's taking it?
So the answer is the grading plan hasn't been submitted yet. Staff haven't reviewed to that detail yet. It'll happen if approval comes at site plan control, but based on Ontario law, they cannot divert their water to other properties.
I understand that, but he said they did have some indication of where it was going. Did he not? Did you not say that? Or that gentleman, somebody said they indicated he's seen some grades to the property. Did you not say that, or did he say that?
I did not say that.
Through you, Madam Chair, through the survey submitted as part of the application package shows the preliminary drainage details that show drainage swales along the property lines to better divert water. Where that water goes is undetermined at this point, as we're in the early stages of design.
Thank you.
Okay, I see we have one hand on the line, so I'm going to have to bounce back to everyone in the room if we're going to entertain one more. But Mr. Henderson, you have 5 minutes. You can begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to, as a resident of this said neighborhood, I have put in written opposition to this to Fabian. I think it is totally out of character for this neighborhood, which is noted for its size and space of lots. It will start a mushroom effect for others to do similar items down the road and split and divide and intensify a town area that this county cannot service water and sewer from their infrastructure. And we have developers, builders, investors sitting on millions and millions of dollars worth of dirt, engineering, planning, plans of subdivision, waiting on this county connecting us to a larger flow of water. It is totally unfair to allow a single, relatively small investor to speculate and get preferential treatment over these long-term developers, builders that are developing this town, providing large amounts of tax revenue and water and sewer revenue for the county. The water drainage issue that the previous persons have brought up is absolutely true in this neighborhood. There is such a strong spring-fed groundwater problem or challenge that if you do not have new, very good and expensive sump pumps, you will be wet in this neighborhood. There is the old section of Prospect Street that have massive lots that add to this town's character enormously. The new section behind them in the Egink development is similarly spacious, and it would be totally against all of those investors and people that have renovated, restored, and chosen to stay in this really beautiful part of town to start intensifying it for density over the benefit of a building lot. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I really hope that this gets put on the back blocks and turned down. It is not in character, and I hate to use the term "not in my backyard," but not in my backyard. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. And anyone else in the room, this is the final call. Okay, thanks. I guess I want to make a couple comments and maybe bounce it over to staff quickly because Mr. Henderson's raised a couple of points specifically, and so have some others. And personally, I find this to be one of the hardest parts of the job because all the decisions you make from a planning perspective are very permanent and fundamentally they change the character of our neighborhoods. But as a community, as a town, as a county, as a province, and as a country, we are in a housing crisis, and municipalities are not given the tools to turn down housing because we don't like it or because we don't want it. There are official plans and provincial plans that really need to be adhered to. Otherwise, it costs you, the taxpayers, a considerable amount of money to have a decision be appealed, have us get a lawyer, have us get a planner, and go off and represent why we made the decision we did in Toronto. And ultimately, the development community is usually favored because we need housing. So what we really need to do is work with the development community to determine the type of housing that best fits our communities. And Mr. Henderson just raised his concern about this becoming, the mushroom effect. And that was one of the first things that I actually posed to our staff. Can we expect to see more of this? And I really closely follow what's happening with housing across Canada and across Ontario because I don't know what the solution is to create more housing for community members and ensure that we have young families living here and ensure that we're creating opportunities for our seniors to downsize into a home that is manageable for them so they can live in their community for the rest of their lives. And there is no answer, but I think the mushroom effect of people infilling on their lots is going to start happening, and it's not a reason for council to say no. So I share that with you because for me, educating the public on how development works from a municipal perspective might not make it any better for you, but at least you have the information and the tools that you need to understand the umbrella of which we're able to make decisions under. Drainage is typically not a reason to say no. Relief from setback is typically not a reason to say no to development. So I raise that with you all, but I thank you for your comments. Staff, you've taken notes today. If there's anything outstanding, it will come back in a supplemental report before a decision is made. And with that, I'm not seeing any other. Councillor Van Passen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a request to staff when the final report comes out. I don't know if this one was the anomaly, but normally when they provide the setbacks, if you can provide the required and what is proposed, so you know the difference. There's a difference on if they're proposing 3.71 meters and you require 50, that's a big difference. If you only require 4, it's not. And normally they include that, but somehow this time it got missed. And if they give a bit more detail on the report that way, and And I know that the final draft plan for drainage doesn't come, that part of the building permit thing, but is it possible to get a rough draft, like with some answers on, you know, there's a plan on how to deal with it around the proposed building, but where does that go? Is there a municipal drainage system there that they would hook into, or is it open ditch? And at least get some of those details in the report, so when people look at the final proposal, that they get a little bit more information to play with. So, thank you.
Tricia?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through to the councillor. Yes, most definitely, and thank you for the question, Councillor Van Passen. We've been messaging in the background, and we'll have that better technical information around the drainage piece, most definitely, with the recommendation report, and we'll include the other component you requested as well.
Councillor Columbus.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I thought I heard the planner say that this development was not compatible with the existing neighborhood. Could I get clarification on that?
Great point, actually. That was something I wanted to go back to, too. I believe we heard, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody mentioned the engineering comments that suggested that. Is that what you mean?
I thought I heard Fabian actually say that, so.
Oh, okay. Fabian,
No.
you want to clarify?
Through you, Madam Mayor. What I meant by that is that the entire area is a single detached homes, and this would be the only semi-detached building. I recognize just the fact that it's different. It looks out of place. It's out of character. That's all I meant by that.
Okay, so that did not include the issue of drainage or parking or setbacks or anything? Okay, thanks. I misunderstood.
Okay. All right, with that, I'm looking for a mover and a receiver to simply receive this as information. There's no decision being made on this file at this time. Moved by Councillor Van Andriesch, seconded by Councillor Berry. All in favor? That is carried, and we will have another public report when we make a decision on the development. Okay, next on the agenda is item 4.2. Back over to Mr. Sloan for report CD 24008, Waverly Draft Plan of Subdivision Delhi. And we'll just give everyone a couple minutes to clear out.
Okay, thank you. We have a new subdivision proposal in Delhi, and Mohammed is here. He's going to walk us through the overview of the development proposal. So I'll turn it over to Mohammed.
Thank you, Brandon. Through Madam Chair, this is a draft plan of subdivision application for an infill site of 3.1 hectare of lands. The subject lands are located at southeast of Delhi urban boundary. Can you go to the next slide, please? Mostly surrounded by low-density residential developments to the west side, agricultural lands to the east and south, and protected industrial site to the north of the property. There is a rail line which is already decommissioned adjacent to the north. The land is relatively flat and vacant for a long period. Historically, it was agricultural land, which was changed to general industrial in 1985, and then from industrial to residential in 2019. Next slide, please. So as you can see in the first map, the yellow color on the subject land indicates it is designated as urban residential in the official plan. And the dark brown color to the north is designated as protected industrial. The second map, the zoning indicates is zoned as urban residential type 2 with a holding. Both single detached and semi-detached dwellings are permitted in that zone. The proposal included only single detached dwellings. Next slide, please. The development proposal consists of 45 single detached dwellings. 42 of them are 12 footers, which means 12 feet frontage. 3 of them are 15 footers. There is a 0.25 hectare stormwater management pond is proposed at the northwest corner, which will provide some buffer from the existing industrial use to the west. Other development features include a stormwater block at the middle of the development for passage of stormwater runoff and internal sidewalks. In the current proposal, the development has two access, one from Waverly Street and another one from Brock Avenue. A holding removal application is also submitted by the applicant, which is not part of this public hearing meeting. A record of site condition will be required to remove the holding, and it will be reviewed once we receive that. Next slide, please. To support the development, we received a stormwater management report, a D-series land use compatibility review, a traffic impact study, a functional servicing report, geotechnical report, and a phase 2 environmental site assessment. We received most of the technical comments. Staff will further review the opportunity of sidewalk. Through the technical comments, what we'll further review is future connections to existing sidewalks, confirmation of rail line abandonment, appropriate buffer and mitigation measures to confirm the compatibility issue with the industrial use to the north, and completion of water and sanitary modeling, which is in the process right now. We received engineering comments after finalizing this report. Key items included recommendation that developer will be responsible to urbanize Waverly Street while installing underground infrastructure for this development between Gaze Street and the subdivision limit. Service capacity will be confirmed and allocated at the time of subdivision agreement. Full technical comments will be added with the recommendation report. We received one public input. Key concerns include potential loss of green space and wildlife, potential pressure on 50 years old sewer system, construction noise and traffic. The public input also inquired about an old court order that states that a roadway would not be extended onto this new development by Brock Avenue access point. Our record does not show this land went through any OLT hearing. Neither do we have any legal documents at this time, and there is nothing in the land title as well. Staff would further look into that to identify if there is any legal document exists. Next slide, please. So key primary or preliminary considerations for this project is the benefit of additional housing units as an infill development, opportunity for pedestrian connection to existing sidewalks and to any future trail along the old rail line, mitigation measures and buffer from the light industrial use, any requirement for servicing upgrade that will be a result of the servicing modeling is going on. Next slide, please. Through Madam Chair, our next steps are considering all public inputs, completion of technical review, and a recommendation report to the council. Staff recommends that this report is received for information, and any comments received as part of this meeting is considered for a recommendation report. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from committee? Councillor Columbus, then Brunton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Mohammed, when I first saw this diagram with the lot layout and the street from Brock Avenue where it takes that funny twist to the north, I guess, just wondered, was there any consideration given to looping that Street A around back to Waverly and just leave Brock Avenue, which is a total disaster and needs severe attention? Was there any thought about looping it over to Street A to come out on Waverly?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Columbus, the two-axis connection from Brock Avenue and Waverly Street was initially recommended by development engineering. And also I believe the alternate proposal that you just mentioned was probably initially identified by the developer. Yes, that will definitely will reduce some number of units, but that would be, I think, should be considered as well through the engineering comments.
Because I would think you could even get more lots than 45 in there, and if it went the other way, and that block 40 or block 47 storm block could be put in the right of way of that road if it came across there rather than where it is. I just thought if you could comment on that.
So moving the stormwater pond to add more lots?
No, I'm talking about that between the two streets there, block 47 it says, storm block. If there was a road going back to the north, towards Waverly, it would eliminate that funny curve there at the end of Brock Avenue.
Oh, I see. So that funny curve is, as I understand it, to create access for that other parcel. That was right now it's accessing through private property, and it was one of the staff suggestions to shore up our roads and create access and so on. So that was an amendment made.
I see. Okay, thanks.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. And sorry, I'll wait my turn. Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Is the consultant here? I think I might wait and ask him the questions. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? My question for staff is the stormwater management pond creates a suitable buffer from the industrial. That's the, okay. Public consultation, court order. Do we have any documentation on that or comment?
To Madam Mayor, we are exploring that. There are many avenues that we are exploring. One of them is a legal comment about or a legal search. If there is any document is there, we'll try to find it. And I would probably also advise the proponent to look at that. If there's any information we can get, we'll consider that.
Okay, so you'll report back if you find anything, but nothing at this time.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, is there the applicant or the agent wish to come forward and speak? Please come on up. It's the button on the right of the microphone, and if you could state your name for the public record, that'd be great.
Right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Pletch. I'm a civil engineer and project manager with Dillon Consulting, here to represent the ownership group for this plan of subdivision. I'll just touch on a few overall points, and then I'll maybe address some of the discussion that's come up. So the main point is that the draft plan application is consistent with the county's planning documents. So that would be the official plan and the rezoning. So it's completely consistent with the county's direction and the previous official plans. I'll also point out the property is largely vacant. There's remnants of a bit of a parking lot. There is a bit of a wood lot that wraps around the property, but that wood lot is not in the property. So that was one of the comments that came from the public. So we're not expecting to remove any significant amount of trees other than we absolutely have to for the Brock Ave extension. In fact, our client would consider keeping those trees as an amenity, something they would like to do. The Brock Ave extension, I'll just add that was a requirement from development engineering from the county. Once subdivisions reach a certain size, it's nice to have more than one access for emergency vehicles. It's also nice to avoid cul-de-sacs for maintenance vehicles and such to turn around. You can also loop the water mains. So the water mains, if you can picture it, from Waverly and Brock will both extend into the property. So looping water mains helps with flow rates, firefighting, that type of thing. So that's where those requirements came from. In terms of the suggested court order, we've done our homework ourselves. We can't find anything, so we've reviewed the title of the property. We've had legal support on this. We can't find any information. Not a common thing to see that a court would dictate that a county can extend one of its own roads. I've never seen that before, so we would welcome any documentation if it was found, but we haven't found anything. There is an easement at the corner of the property, so where the Brock Ave extension is, there's an easement to provide property to that large home, kind of on the bottom of the page there. When Brock Ave gets extended, that lot will then have frontage on a road, so they'll have access to their property that way. So perhaps there was a misinterpretation of prior easement documents. I believe that's the main points. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, and thanks for your deputation. My question about the stormwater pond here, and I'm not, the location of it, I guess you've looked at that in terms of, and I assume that stormwater block is to bring the water from the one street over into the pond. Is that the idea of it? Or does the pond outlet onto Waverly Street? Does it?
Yeah, so the pond's placed at the lowest part of the site in terms of elevation. So the development will have storm sewers that all drain into that pond, and its outlet will be into the existing sewer on Waverly Street.
Waverly
so
Street.
The pond will slow down the water and release it.
So is that the pond designed like for pre-development conditions? Is that the idea behind it?
Exactly, yep.
And what is can you tell me about, does it recharge the ground? Like, is it like a 2-year, 5-year storm that goes into the ground before it outlets?
Yeah, it does both. So it'll be designed to meet the Ministry of Environment requirements. The first, I believe it is the 2-year storm, has to absorb into the ground, and then it also provides storage for larger ponds, or larger storms, sorry. We've done a geotechnical analysis of the site. It's all sand, so water does readily absorb into the soil. Right. And the water table was something like 40 feet deep, so it's well down. So we'll try to take advantage of being able to absorb as much water as we can back into the ground while detaining and outletting into the existing sewer.
And is the pond designed just for the subdivision or the catchment area for the whole area?
It's just for the subdivision, which would probably overlap with the catchment area if you look at the elevations of the land around it. Yeah.
Okay, but you're not sure yet though about the 2-year storm soaks recharge, or is it a 5, or who determines that? The ministry, you said?
The ministry sets the requirements, and our stormwater management experts in-house will design the pond accordingly. So similar to the other applications, we get the draft plan approval from council first, and then we really get into those details after.
Well, you think it's a 2-year that
something like that, yeah. Or the first 25 mil, no. First 10 mils of rain, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not the storm expert, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Columbus.
I know that you and your partner, Chris, are fairly local, but can you tell us about your development experience to date, like where you've developed properties?
The team there?
Yep.
Yeah, not me personally. Yeah, yeah. They're a local developer. They're based out of Tilsonburg. They have recently working on a subdivision there with a couple hundred lots. So they're local. They're a team of real estate builders, developers, and they build. Their intention is to build nice properties and nice homes. So they're local and they're great to work with.
And when do you hope to get the first shovel in the ground?
Pending draft plan approval, then we would have to work with county staff on the detailed design of the subdivision, sign off on the development agreement. So probably best case scenario would be nice to start digging later this year, maybe some of the earthworks. I wouldn't expect to see houses probably not till next year, 2025.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks for adding that supplemental information. Is there anyone here in council chambers that wishes to speak? And is there anyone on the line? And final call. Okay, then with that, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to receive the report as information. That staff report CD 24008 for development application 28 TPL 2023-390 be received for information, and that any comments received as part of the statutory public meeting be considered in a future recommendation staff report. Moved by Councillor Duthie, seconded by Councillor Brunton. All in favor? That's carried. And sorry, forgive me, I want to go back very quickly and make one comment on that former application. It's kind of moot now because of, pardon?
I make one last comment
Sure,
on this?
Please.
They had me confused because in the report it says that the stormwater pond is in the southwest corner. When I look at it, it's northwest, but then they turned the map sideways, and it really confused the hell out of me. So there is one little error in the staff report that I hope they get that one fixed, but
Okay, good catch. I was just going to comment earlier on another comment from Mr. Henderson about the water, and I want to comment on it because it's a very important one, so it's not specific to the former development, but for anyone listening on the line, and I suppose just for public record, we also cannot turn down applications based on capacity, availability, whether we have it or not. And the recommendation, if it goes forward on that former development, would be to receive a holding provision. So, but that being said, there has been substantial amount of work done in the Port Dover community with capacity online that's going to be doled out very shortly. So there is water capacity. I think that was important to note. Okay, then I think we are squared away for our public hearing meeting. So I guess Councillor Huffman, I'm looking for you. There she is for 4:10 adjournment, seconded by Councillor Michele. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.